The New York City skyline stretched out before Remnant. The buildings, bathed in the sun's afterglow, stood like silent sentinels over the streets below, where the day was giving way to the night. The mansion incident last night had been a prelude. As the darkness crept in, it brought with it the cloak under which he would operate, the veil that would shield his movements from prying eyes. As he lay in silence, waiting for the right moment, his mind drifted to the event now immortalized in history as the Rift. It was a turning point, one that altered the course of history. 8 years had passed since the AXIOM lines had surged with unimaginable energy, carving a colossal gap that severed the Northeast from the rest of the United States. A mountain range-sized chasm now stood as a brutal reminder of that day, making any attempt to traverse by land an impossible endeavor and forever reshaping the landscape. AXIOM. The gift and curse, of course, humans, in their infinite wisdom, had turned on one another as usual, be it mana users wielding their newfound powers with a ferocity born of fear and desire, or non-mana users demonizing and killing mana users whenever possible. The battles raged, leaving scars upon those who had survived. The memory of that day was etched into his soul, a day that began with laughter and ended with loss. His parents' unintended martyrs to a war they never chose. Now Remnant lay there. The weight of memory and purpose irritated him. He was no longer the helpless boy of 10. He stood up irritated. He hated thinking of the past even though it fueled him. Perched on the precipice of the rooftop, he surveyed the technology research facility below. A truck rumbled in, deploying 15 guards and 5 scientists who loaded a cargo elevator. He deftly extracted 2 sanguine orbs from his utility belt. With a flick, one orb arced onto the facility's roof, while its twin descended into the bay of the cargo elevator just as the doors sealed shut. The marble's clatter upon impact reverberated through the elevator, drawing eyes wide with a blend of bewilderment and alarm. As the blood burst forth, it transmuted into 24 crimson runes that danced across the surfaces, casting an ominous glow upon the floor, walls, and ceiling. Remnant materialized within the confined space, his pitch-black sword in hand, drawn to the rune nearest the commanding guard, a strategic strike aimed at the likely strongest of the opposition. Yet even as 5 guards summoned their mana in defense, their efforts were rendered futile. They would be the first to die. His resolve hardened and his mood foul. No games tonight, he mused, dispatching 2 guards with swift precision. Chaos erupted as a panicked guard drew his sidearm, firing wildly. With a fluid step, he flashed to the next rune, the stray bullet finding a scientist instead. A grim dance ensued, phasing from rune to rune, each movement perfect and silent. Within mere seconds, everyone was dead. The elevator descended swiftly, halting 2 floors below. As the doors slid open, Remnant surged out, dispatching 2 guards with lethal precision. A lengthy corridor stretched ahead, leading to the laboratory he sought. Suddenly an alarm blared. A guard had noticed him. 13 guards amassed in the hallway, weapons drawn and firing. Remnant retreated into the elevator for cover. With a deft motion, he hurled a sanguine orb down the corridor. It struck a guard squarely in the chest. In a blink, Remnant phased to the orb's location. In one swift motion, he planted a foot firmly on the still, standing guard's torso, the other crushing his throat, as his sword found its mark in the guard's eye. With a surge of power, Remnant executed a powerful drop kick, propelling the guard into another, both careening through the air. Still airborne, he launched his sword, skewering a guard's chest with unerring accuracy. Twisting acrobatically, he evaded incoming fire and dispatched another with a throwing knife to the throat. Landing deftly, he sent the sanguine orb skittering behind the 9 remaining guards. They hesitated, anticipating his phasing trick. Seizing the moment, Remnant activated his mana shield and charge. Bullets ricocheted off the shimmering barrier as he closed in, drawing his second sword with fluid grace. But then a formidable aura halted him, a guard behind with mana-infused fists. Remnant's instincts kicked in, and he sidestepped a devastating punch that shattered the ground, leaving a crater in its wake. As the guards seized their chance, firing relentlessly, Remnant closed the gap, used the large assailant as a shield, their backs pressed together. The guard spun for a backhand strike, but Remnant ducked, severing the man's leg at the knee. A geyser of blood erupted, and in that fleeting moment, Remnant kicked the leg at the remaining guards, then vanished. With a predator's grace, he slipped into the middle of them, easily dispatching them. He prowled along the lab's dimly lit perimeter, his movements sharp and predatory. In one swift motion, he seized a scientist, his grip firm and unyielding. With calculated precision, he advanced toward the device, snatching it effortlessly with his free hand. With both the scientist and the device now in his control, Remnant moved swiftly. He transported them to the rooftop where his initial sanguine orb awaited. Without hesitation, he activated the orb again moments later, emerging in a concealed car hidden in a nearby alley. Once inside, he blindfolded and cuffed the scientist, securing him tightly in the back seat. Sliding into the driver's seat, he adjusted the mirror, catching a fleeting glimpse of chaos as police swarmed the lab. Their reinforcements arrived too late. A faint smirk played on his lips as he started the car. Almost a good warm-up, he thought, his mind already shifting to the next phase of the plan. Reed Masters sat in silent contemplation, the wine in his glass catching the dim light as he swirled it with purpose. With a deliberate sip, he savored the taste, his thoughts sharp and unwavering. Today held unparalleled significance. It marked the dawn of a 6-month campaign to seize control of the nation. A quest for power he was certain the masses, fools though they were, would eventually come to appreciate. After all, as they say, there's an easy way and a hard way to achieve things. Whether the people believed it or not, this was the easy way. "Ah, Remy, you're back," Masters said warmly, arms open as though greeting an old friend. "Did you find the device?" Remnant stepped into the room, his expression a storm of irritation. "I'm not your pet, so stop with the ridiculous nicknames," he growled. "Yes, I found it. And the scientist. They're secure. And for the record, I don't need a babysitter." Masters met his anger with a calm, almost amused smile. "I asked you to retrieve something, and you delivered. There's no need to be so grumpy. Remy, I was moments away from calling you a good boy and offering you some head pats. Maybe even an ear rub. Possibly a treat." "Touch me, and I'll kill you," Remnant said coldly, his blade sliding halfway out of its sheath in a lightning-fast gesture of warning. Masters barely blinked, setting his wineglass down with deliberate ease. "One day you might actually follow through," he mused, his voice laced with nonchalance. He let the words hang in the air. "Speaking of good boys, Beck and his crew performed admirably. It's a shame they were planning to betray us. But as they say, a broken pawn is still a pawn." Remnant's glare burned with fury. "No one says that." Masters leaned back, unruffled. "You must spend too much time with pawns, then. Perhaps I should introduce you to the kings and queens of the world someday." With a sudden surge of mana, Remnant shattered Masters' wineglass into glittering shards. All right, you caught me," Masters said, raising his hands in mock surrender, his smirk never wavering. "I made it up. Happy now?" He chuckled softly, a low and knowing sound. "You're so delightfully tense. It's what makes this so entertaining. Now see that Beck and his crew are dealt with, and send a pawn to clean up this mess, won't you, my dear knight?" Grinding his teeth, Remnant sheathed his blade with a sharp, decisive motion. Without another word, he turned to leave, the sound of Masters' laughter trailing after him. "I absolutely hate that man," Remnant thought bitterly as he strode away. He clenched his fists, his anger simmering. "I really, really hate him." And yet deep down, he couldn't escape the nagging truth. He needed Masters. The man's resources were essential. Otherwise, he would have killed him long ago.